It's something you've likely witnessed and chances are been a part of at least some scale, following the decisions of a group of people without really considering the implications of the rationale. It's a phenomenon called groupthink that has been studied on both large and small scales. To talk more about this, we're joined by registered psychologist Lisa Rowbottom. Lisa, thanks so much for coming. This is kind of a fascinating conversation that maybe doesn't happen all that often. How does this happen, this groupthink phenomenon?
So it's quite interesting. We find it will happen over many different types of groups of people, but generally there's certain conditions under which it happens more often. And so if you've got a really directive leadership, you've got time constraints, there's pressure to conform, or there's also what we call a diffusion of responsibility. So there's a way that you can sit in the group and say, oh, well, I wasn't really responsible for that. I'm part of this group and it was the group's fault. It wasn't mine.
Absence of some responsibility, things can go a long way. Do you have some specific examples of groupthink?
So interestingly, back in, I believe it was the 80s, there was a group of engineers and scientists who got together to discuss the launching of a specific rocket into space. And there was information that had come saying that it wasn't a good idea to launch due to the temperature of the day, I believe, because they knew that the seals were going to crack and the rocket ended up exploding. They were very intelligent people in that group, so they weren't people who were who didn't know what they were talking about. They had evidence, but the evidence was dismissed, and it was, a pressure to look good for the nation and to look good for, people around them, and so they could justify the risk. And in the end, they ended up taking a very foolish risk, and the rocket that they launched exploded.
So the intentions are never seemingly bad by the group, but sometimes can go in a dangerous route, as you just described. How do we avoid this? How do we recognize this if we're in a group or perhaps witnessing a group do this?
So often, if you're sitting in a group that's drifting that direction, you're going to see pressure to conform. So any sort of a dissenter is silenced by generally group disapproval, because there's a need for conformity or for, harmony within the group. And so when you see that starting to happen, it means that the group may be drifting in a specific direction, and it's more important to speak out and to actually be the devil's advocate, so to speak. And sometimes people will be identified as a devil's advocate in a group to serve that function. So their goal or their job is to balance off the voices that want conformity by saying, well, wait, no, what about this, and what about this, and what about that, so that it can work out so they don't have a groupthink situation happening.
Now, that can be tricky because, as you described, the circumstances sort of eliminate that opportunity to speak up. Do you have advice for someone who may feel like they don't have the power to change anything?
I think that recognizing it's important that you not back down, and that there are likely other people who share your opinion within the group, because normally most people are more in a moderate space, but they're going to remain silent out of fear of disrupting group harmony or disrupting, the social cohesion of the group. And so the important piece is, you're not alone. And if you keep that in the back of your mind, then expressing dissent, if you're one of the stronger voices, is going to start drawing out those other people who also agree, who may be silent.
Okay, well, it's important advice, important conversation. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us. You can learn more about Lisa and connect by visiting sojo.ca.